Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy, and today we have a very excited, incredible guest on here. His name's Rocky Romanella, and again, I'm going through and making sure that the people that I'm having on here are absolutely applicable to building a legacy, who have built a legacy, and can give us the kind of the skills and tricks of the trade of how they did that, how they went from corporate America into entrepreneurship, and what were the kind of challenges they had. So he's currently the founder and CEO of 360 Management Services and the author of the book, Tighten the Lug Nuts. 360 Management Services is a complete management services company with seasoned professionals focused on thought leadership, leadership development, and process improvement. And something that I've found through my journey of creating my legacy is it's great to have a vision and to be able to have your own legacy inside of yourself, but essential part of building a lasting legacy is learning how to lead others and help other people adopt the vision and mission of what you're trying to accomplish, because it's really difficult to do all by yourself. In fact, I think it's nearly impossible to do all by yourself, create a lasting legacy. So with that being said, I'm super excited to have Rocky on. Go ahead, Rocky, and let us know more about you and then kind of your transition and how you made that jump.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And I'm very excited also to be on the show. And while I've done countless interviews, this one is very special to me because I really talk a lot about, not only in my book, in my speaking, this concept of legacy. I think legacy is such an important concept. And to me, that's the ultimate, maybe evaluation, or maybe the ultimate about you as a leader, is this concept of legacy. And for me, legacy is you leave things a little better than you found them. Are people better because of their time with you? Are your customers better because of their interaction with you? And so I really like this concept of legacy. I believe in it. And so it's an honor to be on a show that you talk about building your legacy. So thank you for having me on there. Maybe as we go on, we can talk a little bit more about this concept of legacy. So for me, I started out many years ago. I guess I'll show my age a little bit. June 15th, 1976, unloading trailers in Edison, New Jersey for UPS. And I was working my way through college. And the significance there was I was part-time, working my way through school, and I was actually going to school to be a high school history teacher and a baseball. And what I found out as I was working my way through that period, I started to notice that the best leaders were those individuals who were the best teachers, that they could get their people to connect the dots, they could get their people to see what we were trying to accomplish. And so I never gave up on my teaching passion. I just took the classroom, for me, became the business, right? So as a business leader, I was a teacher and a coach. And so I never gave up my coaching desire and I never gave up my teaching desire. I just did it in a different classroom. So for me, that is where, I felt like I was fulfilling my dream of being a teacher and a coach, just did it in a business setting. And so I thought that was very significant. Secondly, when I got my job at UPS, my dad told me two things. The first thing was, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you, and then learn your job and learn some more. And those were always, I think, very important, cultural values that were instilled in me, that you learn your job and learn some more. And whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you. And if you think about it as an entrepreneur, isn't that what you do with your customers when they come in, right? It's yes and thank you. It's what can I do to help you? What's the solutions I'm building on behalf of you? And thanks for your business. And you start to realize as an entrepreneur, it's a lifetime value of a customer. And so as I kind of grew inside of UPS, whenever a new assignment came up and they tapped me on the shoulder, all I could hear my dad say was yes and thank you. And so I moved throughout UPS and throughout the country. And I had some really interesting jobs inside UPS, which started to get me interested in this world of being an entrepreneur. And I came from a very large corporate environment. The first place was when we purchased mailboxes, et cetera, and now and today it as the UPS Store, was rebranded to the UPS Store. I had that as a direct report. And the UPS Store is 100%, franchisee owned. There are no corporate owned stores. And so I met some of the greatest entrepreneurs, some of the most wonderful people as franchisees, owners of UPS stores. And I learned so much from them. There's such great valuable lessons there. And I always thought to myself, I had such great admiration for their entrepreneurial spirit. And I often looked at them and said, I'm not sure I could do this. I mean, I have such great admiration for you. I mean, they're the ultimate all-in people, if you think about it, right? They take everything they own in the world and they slide it across the table and they say, I'm all in. I want to buy a franchise. I want to start my own business. And no matter, inside of a corporate world, you could say you're all in, but you're not really all in like they are, right? Because as a business owner, at the end of the day, you hit the cash register and the drawer opens, and what's left in that drawer, you pay your people, you pay your vendors, and then what's left is what you take home to your family. So I always had such great admiration for that entrepreneur, and I always wondered, could I do it? And would I have the courage to do what they're doing? And so, as I grew and developed inside UPS and ran that network, I always kind of watched them and took lessons from them and had conversations from them and felt like I learned so much from them as independent business owners. And then later on, we purchased over 20 companies and built what today UPS Supply Chain Solutions. And we met small business owners that we had purchased and other large companies. But once again, interacted with it. And that was the first time I had a chance to kind of build a business from ground up and through these acquisitions. I retired from UPS, took a role as a CEO of a telecom company. We built cell towers, upgraded cell towers. And so got a chance to run that business as CEO, but always kind of had that eye of, I wonder if I could be an entrepreneur. I wonder, can I start my own business? And so for me, when we sold the business, one of the things I failed at miserably is this concept of retirement. So I just don't know how to retire. And so I said, I'm going to start my own business and see what I can do. And our business 360 management services has three legs of our stool. There's keynote speaking, which I do. There's leadership training, and then there's process improvements through consulting. And so this is my entry into the world of entrepreneur. By no means, though, do I think that, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me to take the things I've learned in my career, but still tremendous respect and admiration for those individuals who start their own business and take everything they own and take what they have in their life and put everything on the line. I just think it's just these are tremendous people that I have so much admiration for.
I love that. It's an interesting story because I have a very similar story from certain perspectives that I'm going to draw out here, because I think that this holds a lot of people back there, and maybe it's just limited scope of what they understand. And so I'm going to ask you kind of where that came from, but the fulfillment of your passion of teaching and coaching, right? What you ultimately found is that you could fulfill that passion in a quote unquote, and I would say it's only quote unquote because I think it's more in business than others, but in a non-traditional way. Because you say you're a teacher and a coach. Now I think the definition has shifted, but before it's like you obviously worked at a school or something. I'm a teacher and I coach some sports or something. But what was the process, or who made you aware that you could apply those same passions in a different arena and potentially get paid more or have more of a lifestyle that you wanted?
Well, as I was watching those individuals, as I was, being managed by someone at a higher level than me, I started to realize that, wow, working for that individual versus that individual, the biggest difference was their ability to, get me to understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so that to me is teaching, right? I mean, the passion in teaching is seeing the light bulbs go off over the heads of your students and them understanding that it's, they're connecting the dots. The second piece of, I think, teaching that teachers don't get a lot of credit for, but they certainly should, is this whole concept of legacy. If you think about it for a second, if legacy is, do you leave things a little better than you found them? Are people better because of their time with you? Well, if you and I were at a major conference and I was the speaker and I said to everyone in the audience, hey, who is the local politician in your area? Who is the head of the Board of Education? Most people couldn't answer that. But if I asked the question, who's that teacher that made a difference in your life? Everybody stops, tilts their head. Oh, Miss So-and-so, 5th grade, Mr. So-and-so in 6th grade. You're probably thinking right now of that teacher who made a difference in your life.
Hmm.
Well, that's legacy because you make a difference. And so for me, as I was, became a part-time supervisor, and then UPS was talking to me about becoming a full-time supervisor, to me, it just made sense that I could do both. My legacy, though, was going to be the influence of people inside of a work environment, but I was going to train them, teach them, and coach them just in a different. So to me, it was just my way of, I enjoyed what I was doing at UPS, but I also got the enjoyment of being able to build teams, coach those teams, and then teach them, by motivating them to do more than they ever thought they could do on their own.
No, I love that. And something that you kind of brought up about that it's so funny doing these interviews because people say stuff and it's generally the stuff that gets brushed over that I think is the most powerful point for people and for my audience. And that is, the epiphany moment was when you were being managed by other people and started to analyze what type of leadership you were getting, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
and the key there is there's so many people who are in a situation right now who are unhappy with their situation, and rather than looking at the method of delivery of why they're unhappy with it and saying, okay, how would I improve on that, and starting to challenge themselves and mentally grow, because everything starts spiritually, everything's created mentally first. But rather than do that, they'll often sit and complain about it. And it's interesting. I went into it was a retreat with some other coaches, and my whole focus of being there was not to, and maybe this is bad, or I don't know if it's bad, but I was getting stuff out of the seminar. But for me, I was more focused on how are they doing the seminar? How are they delivering it? How are they closing? How are they presenting information? And if everybody were to start to look at their leaders or the people around them and start analyzing the delivery of information and the form of leadership, then I think that we'd all be better followers for sure, but we'd also be able to grow our influence at whatever level of a company or a family or a religion that we're at. We'd be able to slowly grow our influence because we're starting to analyze the methods of delivery and the intentions rather than the results.
Well, I think that's very true, and I think what people miss sometimes is there's a big difference between communication and education. I think that's where a lot of things fall short of the mark. And what I mean by that is companies do a great job of communication. There's you'll walk around a company, or even in a sports program, well defined. There's bulletin boards. There's all kinds of well articulated and great graphically done communication. But education means there's an accountability. So, for example, as a teacher, I may tell you everything there is to know about George Washington, and I may do it in just the greatest way possible. But accountability is when I give you the test. Did you pass the test?
Yep.
That's education. And that's what's missing so often is that accountability piece, right? That test, a positive, polite test. Okay, you and I had a meeting at work, or take an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I run a business, and I have 3 people in my small business. Okay, and what's my strength as a small business owner? No one knows the business better than I do. I have great passion for the business. I own the business. What's your weakness? No one owns a bit. No one knows the business better than I do. I have passion for the business, and I own the business. That becomes your weakness. Well, how do I allow you then, those three individuals who are in my care as the business owner? How do I get them to understand what we're trying to accomplish? Well, first I communicate with them, but the education piece comes in when the questions I asked. Today I taught you how to use this new piece of software inside our business, and then tonight I say to you, how'd you do? What questions did you have? I test you in a positive way, not in a negative way to say you don't know something. Do you know it? Do you understand it? What can I do to help you? Once you know it, and then once you understand it, then I let you fly. One of the things I learned at UPS that was so dramatic that I think is so important for small business owners today is I realized that as UPS was having this promotion from within policy and I was taking advantage of it, there were times they would tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Rocky, we got this new assignment for you." Well, I wasn't always ready for those assignments, maybe, or my confidence level wasn't there, my knowledge wasn't there. But what happened was UPS believed in Rocky Romanella, before I believed in myself. And so I started to understand this as a leader. I have to believe in people often until they're ready to believe in themselves. Think of it out in a sports analogy, right? I think you're ready to bat fourth, but you're not really quite sure you're ready to bat fourth. All
Mm-hmm.
right, so I have to be there to help you. Maybe it's a game plan would come up, maybe it's a hitting approach we take, and you're going to have mistakes, right? Your confidence and your skill may not be there yet, but I see that you can do it. So I bridge that gap by believing in you until you're ready to believe in yourself. And then there's a point where there's that kind of break even, right? Where your skill, your confidence is there, and my amount of managing or mentoring or educating is right at the right point. Then once you're good, I got to let you fly. I can't overmanage you anymore. I got to step back and become what? The cheerleader. Great job. Keep up the good work. Well, that same thing happens in small businesses. And it's sometimes tougher in a small business because it's your business. And so it's one or two or three people in that business. I have to believe in you. I have to mentor and train you. But then when you're ready to go, I have to give you the authority that goes with the responsibility. And my analogy is always think about a retail operation, right? It's Christmas time and the place is busy, or it's a holiday period and the place is really busy. Where's the backup? It's not on the floor. It's at the register because the only person allowed to use the register is the owner. So we've got enough people working the floor to help you purchase, but we don't have enough people working the register because I'm not sure I trust you,
The money.
with the money maybe. Or so I think that's where I think that's so important. And I learned that in the corporate world, but it absolutely is applicable in the small business world where I think some of the biggest difficulties small business owners have is when they go from sole proprietor to one person, sole proprietor to two people. And now all of a sudden it's that third person. How do I manage those individuals? How do I get them to manage my business like I'm the one managing it? So I think and I learned that you have to believe in your people until they're ready to believe in themselves.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the, maybe we'll make that the title of this episode, like believe in others until they believe in themselves. So another thing that I heard when you were telling your story that stuck out to me, I think could be used in multiple, it's a principle that could be taken and applied to multiple areas of somebody's life, whether it is religion, faith, family, fitness, whatever. But that is, even though you weren't directly on the path of entrepreneurship, you still had mentors, and those mentors came in the form of people that you were potentially over to a degree. I mean, in the franchise world, you're not really over them, but you're their support line. And even in a franchise, what corporate says often goes down the line. The franchisees have to just do what corporate says to a level. Is that correct?
Yeah, because they have to follow their franchise agreement, and so they're not allowed to. So the trick in franchising is to maintain that entrepreneurial spirit within the confines of the network. So if you're a UPS store, you have a set of products, or think about the major some of the major franchisees, McDonald's. So you're a McDonald's, you still sell the products and services that are in your franchise agreement. You're not allowed to go outside of that. So you are somewhat in kind of the guide rails, but you have that entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely. And what I think is important there is that you recognize your admiration for these people who had put their whole lives on the line to be an entrepreneur. And oftentimes in our lives, we are either a supporting role, or we know people who are doing something that we admire, but we still have that self-doubt, kind of like, oh, I could never do it myself. But learning and being willing to ask questions of those people that we admire, even though we're not wholly committed to doing it ourselves yet, that gives us gradually the confidence to move forward. And then the other thing and correct me if I heard this wrong, but from what I understand, inside of UPS, you had the task to go start and create a whole nother division of that company. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it was supply chain. So we were building UPS supply chain solutions, and we did it through either acquisitions or starting new lines of businesses and those kinds of things.
So this is the thing. Oftentimes, because I meet with a lot of different people who are in corporate America, and they're like, "Oh, I could never be an entrepreneur." What's interesting is a lot of them have done things like that. They've been tasked to go create a whole nother portion of a company. Now, when I think of entrepreneurism, I think that all you're doing is Samuel Knickerbocker, in this case, I am the head company. I'm UPS. And it's my objective to go and create different portions of the Samuel Knickerbocker company or the UPS company. And so although you hadn't directly put your financial life on the line, by the time you had decided to step out and do it that way, you had already created and developed a company.
That's true, but I think the thing that I respect and admire the most is that final step that, as when you have a large corporation behind you, that final step is I take everything I own in the world and put it on the line. And that to me was always the thing that I would always step back and think to them, wow, I mean, this is an amazing, I mean, think about the belief that you have to have in yourself. Number one, it's kind of like the old theory of, the art of war that, you burn the boats when you get there. So there's no place. You're going straight ahead or you're into the sea because you burned the boats. And so that's as far. So think about it from that perspective. The other thing though, I also was very fortunate that, so, when I became a full-time supervisor at UPS in those days, everybody had to drive. And so I was a driver in New Jersey and I loved that experience, but it also gave me great credibility whenever I came to managing. And so the lesson I learned as I went through it was, any new assignment that I received, that if it was new for me, that I'd go learn the business from the ground up. So for example, when I got the assignment for MBE, I went and spent the day in a store, put an apron on and said, hey, how do these stores work? How do you run these stores? Got out as much as I could to talk with and meet franchisees. When I took over the supply chain piece of business, the first thing I did was go pick an order. Okay, how do we pick orders? How do they work? How do we do this? When I took over the role as CEO, we're building cell towers, upgrading cell towers. I wasn't qualified to climb a cell tower, but I went and spent the day with a crew. So I think the desire to learn the business from that front line is so important. Now, people realize that you don't have the exact same skill levels they do, but they respect the fact that you're willing to take the time to go learn that. And to me, so I was never afraid of a new piece of business or learning something new because I was willing to go learn it from the ground up. And I think that's what's so important. I think the two hurdles that it takes to maybe get into the world of being an entrepreneur is the confidence in yourself to slide everything across the table, or more importantly, the confidence to say, you know what, I'm working my way through this, right? I've got to go forward because there's no boat for me to get in and go backward. So that's number one. Then I think number two is your willingness to work the job. Your willingness to be the chief cook and bottle washer, to be the person that's taking care of everything. And I think, that mentality is something that's so special, that your desire to do that. I'm going to know that I'm going to learn the job. I'm going to work the job. I'm not an absentee owner. I'm there on the front lines. Now that strength becomes a weakness later on if you're not willing to then give up the authority to hire people. But in the short term, I think that's the big difference. And when you're in a corporate world, even if you have quote unquote P&L responsibility, it's not P&L responsibility, like I said before, the way an owner does, right? You have the corporation behind you. So I think that's sometimes that little bit of safety net that you get from a corporation may prevent people who are in the corporate world when they want to start their own business. That may be a little bit of their hesitation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the purposes of this podcast, though, is for those people who, from a skill level, I mean, I think of it like, and I'm not saying I'm good at this, but if you were to go out on the road and say, walk this white line, assuming you're not drunk, right? You're doing the sobriety test or whatever, and you're going to walk this white line, your feet are not going to go off of it. You're like, sure, I can do that, right? And there's no mental stress because the risk of falling is not there. And so the skill to walk in a straight line, of course you have the skill to walk in a straight line. Now you go to gymnastics and you get up on the horse, right? Or whatever I don't know if it's a horse.
Balance beam.
The balance beam, right? That's a little bit higher. It's 4 feet, 6 feet off the ground. And it's a little bit harder to walk a straight line. It's the same white line. It's the same width, same everything. But there's a little bit more depth of fear there. And then if you're somebody who's walking a tightrope or a slack line or something, let's assume it was a solid one, not wiggling on you, right? But it's still the same line. Same width, same everything. The difference is the risk of falling. The reason that's important And the reason I want to bring that up right now is you don't have an inability to balance. You don't have an inability to be an entrepreneur or start a company and doing whatever your passion is or whatever you're currently doing at your job. It's not your ability that's lacking. It's purely the mindset of the confidence factor of, do I trust myself enough? But once you can separate those two, then it's a lot easier to actually isolate, well, what am I scared of, and actually move past that so you can make that jump, rather than just saying, well, I can't learn how to do that. It's like, you've been doing it for years at this other company. I'm not asking you to do anything else. The only thing I'm asking is to do it for yourself rather than for a company. Please don't change how you're doing it. You're doing a great job. Just do it for yourself rather than a company. And that one factor of whose financial neck is on the line often will stop people from fulfilling their legacy and their purpose.
Well, and I think there's that whole risk analysis that you do, whether it's the risk of your reputation of failing. You could have come out of a corporate environment or a different scenario where you've been completely successful. I mean, it happens, by the way, in promotions. If you think about it for a second, you're very good at this supervisor job, for example. You're the best at it. So you're at the top of your game. Now I promote you to a manager. You may be the least best manager right now. And so you just went from the top of the mountain to the bottom, from the peak to the valley. And now you've got to work your way back up. And you like that feeling of being the best supervisor. You like the fact that you know your job very well and you're very good at it. So it happens it happens in all different scenarios, no different than a sports player, right? I'm the best AAA baseball player, but now when I come to the major leagues, the fastball looks a little different.
Yep.
So, yeah, I remember asking my son, Rocky, as a hockey player, and as he was moving up and he was playing in college, I remember saying to him one time, what's the difference? It's the same game, but what's the difference? He goes, Dad, it's the speed of the game and there's no bad lines. When you play a good team, there's no bad. All four lines are good. There's no break in. So I think that's what ends up happening is you think through that and you're thinking, well, the game's going to be faster, or do I really want to go through that process of moving through the valley and getting back up to the peak again? I think sometimes that's also becomes the barrier. You're saying, do I really want to go through that work to get back to the top of the mountain again?
Sure. And part of that comes from your fear of humiliation, your fear of failure, your fear of what people might say about you, your addiction to the approval of others. So I'm curious, how did you go about, tell us the story of your biggest naysayer that you experienced in transition and how you silenced them in your mind?
Well, I think what you have to do is, for me, the naysayer piece is always, people look at you and they wonder, can you do it? Why do you want to do it? What are your reasons to do it? Especially when you're coming out of something you were successful at. So why are you doing this? Why don't you just stay retired? Why don't you just collect your pension and be a happy guy kind of thing? Why are you starting a business kind of thing? And for me, it's always go back to the title of your podcast and one of the things I believe so much is this concept of legacy. For me, I felt like I had a very good career. I learned a lot. Learned from a lot of wonderful people, mentored by some great people. And so I felt like this was my way of giving back. So for me, legacy is you leave things a little better than you found them. We talked about that. So for me, this is my way of giving back. And so for me, this business that I'm running today is an opportunity for me to give back and I think, continue on this concept of legacy. So I started it from that perspective. So when people would say to me, why are you doing this? Or, I'm not sure that you're capable of doing it. To me, my vision of what I was trying to accomplish to me was crystal clear. And I think that to me was the first thing, a business owner would say to me when I would meet them or work with them, or today I do a lot of consulting with small business owners. And the really good ones always start with a vision of what they're trying to accomplish. This is what I want my business to look like. They don't talk about it, by the way, from financial terms. At least I don't feel like the most successful entrepreneurs talk about what they're trying to create from a financial perspective. They talk about it from a vision of what we're trying to create, whether it's a UPS store owner who's talking about creating this small business hub in their neighborhood. I want to be the Amazon of small business. I want to be
Right.
that small business hub. When you're starting a business, you come in to see me and I help you with your mailbox, with your business cards, whatever, right? It's the vision of what they're trying to create. I think the very best small business owners start with a vision of what they're trying to create and believe if I do it right and I do it the right way, the byproduct of this is the profit.
Yep.
Profits come because I have a good business, I have a good vision, and I execute that vision and plan, and profits are what come from it. I think if you start from profits, that's the problem. Then you're not always fulfilling your expectations, your goals. You're shortchanging yourself sometimes. You're shortcutting. You're trying to find cheaper, faster way to do things, and you never really then fulfill that vision. So I think that's I think it's where you start. I think is so important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you're starting off thinking about what are you getting in return, then you're not trying to put out enough value. You're not really putting out enough value. You're just trying to think of how can I get as much value as I can, rather than how can I give as much value as I can. And they're two very different questions. So, what would you say? I'm curious. In the transition, what do you think if you were to teach one specific habit, mindset, or behavior that you've learned to do and that's contributed most to you building a meaningful legacy, what would that be? Habit, mindset, or behavior, and then how could we adopt it into our lives and start using it on a regular basis?
Well, I wrote this book, and in the book, the title is really what I think the answer to your question is, and that's this concept of tighten the lug nuts. And for me, tighten the lug nuts is about this concept of don't allow important things to become urgent. If you think about it, when the lug nuts were loose, they're important. They become urgent when the wheel falls off. And think about that simple act of tightening the lug nuts could have taken you 5 minutes to tighten those loose lug nuts, except you got distracted. Other things came up. And if you think about that in small business, that happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
You get distracted, small things come up, but you could have tightened the lug nuts quickly and effectively. So don't allow important things to become urgent because you can only handle so many urgent things. So tighten the lug nuts. I think that's an important concept. The second thing is make sure you, as a small business owner, make sure you understand the difference between nice to do things and need to do things. As an owner, there are need to do things that you have to do, but we tend to do the nice to do things or like to do things. Well, clearly understand what the need to do things are and make sure that you're always taking care of the need to do things and don't find yourself getting, kind of drawn into the nice, or I really like to do this, or I like to, the customer walks in and I'm in the middle of, ordering supplies for the business. But this is a customer I really like because now I've been in business 3 years. And when I first started, that was one of my first customers. So you love to talk to that customer. So the next thing you know is you walk over and you spend 3 hours with that customer. It's been a great conversation. You got caught up. Something else happens. And then 2 days from now, somebody says to you, hey, we're short of supplies. Where's all? Oh, I got, loose lug nut, got distracted. So make sure you know the difference between nice to do and need to do things and focus on the need to do things. And I think the last thing I would say is, a small business owner is very good at tactically running their business, but every now and then you have to take the time to step away from the business and think about what is my business going to look like in the next 6 months, year, 18 months, 2 years from now. Because you can't put the seatbelt on after the airbag goes off. So you can't look 3 years from now and say, wow, I missed that change. I mean, it happens in large companies today. I mean, if you think about it, you're probably too young for this, but on the 107th, 108th year anniversary of the Sears and Roebuck catalog, Sears stopped doing catalogs. And when asked why, they said, nobody buys from catalogs. Well, who is really Sears and Roebuck today? Amazon.
Yeah,
If you think
exactly.
about it. It's just
Yep.
the internet piece of it. So it's that horse is out of the barn. I'm sure Walmart believes they should have had an e-commerce strategy long before now. So
Yep.
I think that it happens in large companies, but in small businesses, you tend to be very good at the tactical day to day. But you have to force yourself to take that step back and try to think about where am I going to be in the next 3 to 5. I need to have a business strategy of how I'm going to grow my business, and I need to have a people strategy. How am I going to manage my people? What am I going to look like? What's it mean to work for us as a company? How do I hire the best, most talented people against the companies like Amazon, Google, right? People should want to work for you as a small business owner because it's cool to work for the owner. I mean,
Yep.
Jeff Bezos isn't walking through every Amazon warehouse shaking everybody's hand. You could never be an undercover boss in a small business. You're Cheers. Everybody knows your name. That's
Yep.
a great advantage. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, I mean, this kind of lends into the next question. We talked a lot about this today, but what, when making that jump and to build the legacy that you really want, financial backing is always a concern. It's been the main, I mean, it's the main concern and the thing that you admired most about others. How did you kind of bridge that gap when you going from corporate America into entrepreneurship? How did you financially stabilize your life to where that was a possibility?
Well, I think you have to first start with what are your priorities. So for me, is I had a good pension from UPS and decided, well, am I going to retire and then travel a lot? Am I going to retire a lot and do these things, or am I going to try to build this business? And so if I'm going to try to build this business, then I'm probably not going to travel so much, and I'm going to use those funds that have accumulated over the years to support my business. And for me, it was this concept of building this business, and frankly, through the learning and through the mentoring and through the people I met along the way, I learned so much from them, and they inspired me so much from their small business. I said, you know what? I'm young enough, and I want to see, can I grow this business? Can I do this business? In a different setting, I think you have to then I think you have to think about what is it that I need to make sure I can grow this business and invest in this business. So maybe you're 18 months away, 2 years away from retiring. If you're in a corporate world, what am I saving to build my working capital kind of war chest almost, so that I can have 18 months worth of working capital, so I can still take care of my family. I can still grow my business. And, if that's what I think it's going to take me to hit break even, then they probably need to build that war chest. If you don't have that, then you may be looking for a loan. It could be a working capital line of credit, or it could be that you have some kind of, angel investors or investors. There's 3 or 4 different ways to do it. But I think it starts with, what are you trying to accomplish? And then what is it that I need so that I can provide for my family? And then it allows me the time I need to make the right decisions. Because if you're not careful and you don't do that serious financial planning, 3 months in, you start to get nervous. 6 months in, you start to really panic. And next thing you know, it's okay. We're not ordering any more pencils. We're not doing this anymore. We're not going to invest in a business. And then you may have been much closer than you realize, but now you forced yourself to make other decisions. So I think that financial vision that you have in the period of time from day one to break even may be the most important financial position or plan that you have. Because then once you're at break even, now you're breathing, now you have some more room. Once you start making a profit, even if it's a small margin profit, you're still at profitability. You bought yourself some more time for decisions. I think that period from day one to break even is probably the most important period of time that you have to plan for and understand and make provisions for it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how concisely you said that. Just like, hey, from when you start to when you break even, that needs to be planned out, calculated, and clear. And if done properly, I think that would remove a lot of the stress of jumping into a new like entrepreneur venture, because there's clarity and vision, and there's clarity on where you're going. And you can adjust along the way. If something's happening slower or faster, then you know what levers to pull and how to adjust for that. So that's important. Um, Now let's get into a little bit of what you do specifically when you're coaching or meeting with people in the 360 management services. What is that specifically? What are the services, and then how could we get in touch with you if we wanted to take part in that, or just follow you on social media? How could we get in touch with you?
Well, thank you for asking. So for us, we spend a lot of time on the process side of it. So, for example, in fact, I met with a small business owner yesterday. So sat with him for 4 hours. So husband and wife sat with both of them for 4 hours. Talked about their business. I know their business, and so in this case, it's a little easier. But if it's a business that I don't know, then we would talk about going in and spending a day with inside their business. Let's see how your business works. In this case, they're starting to they're starting to have good growth. And so now we're talking about, the span of control. What should the organization look like? What are the balanced scorecards that we need to put together for their management team that's now starting to grow. So for us, we try to do like this 30, 60, 90 approach. In the first 30 days, we're analyzing your business. We're spending time in your business. We're trying to understand your business. We're trying to get the vision of where you want to take this business. We're looking at your maybe strategy document. Then we're laying out, what are the things that we want to implement? How do we want to implement them? How do we communicate to everyone inside your organization? And in the last 90 days, we're implementing. So we make sure that we're hitting our stride. And so, because small businesses, unlike large corporations, in a large corporation, it may take you 6 months to a year to implement something because of all the bureaucracy. I used to always say, when I was working in a large corporation, thank God we're not ambulance drivers, right? You can't get anything done. But in a small business, you have to make your adjustments quickly and effectively, and you need to move on. So we like to take this 30, 60, 90 approach that, within 90 days, we've got to be able to assess what we need to do. How are we going to do it, implement that, and then monitor, and then say, keep it up, good work, keep up the good work, and put a process in place that gets you consistency going forward. There's three legs of our stool at 360. One leg is keynote speaking. I do the keynote speaking. So, I do get hired for keynotes and breakout sessions, and I thoroughly enjoy doing that. We do leadership training, day and a half to 4-hour workshops to an hour workshop, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And then we have the process improvement that we just talked about. So those are three legs of our stool. We have a website that's very interactive that you can get a lot of information on. It's www. It's the number 3 and the word 60, SIXTY, managementservices.com. You can look at our keynote. There's YouTube videos, and there's information about not only our keynote speaking, but training as well as our process improvement process there. And there's media stuff. And then, of course, there's the book. And the book is very, I wrote the book to be not only a good story that'll make you smile and laugh, but also a very helpful book that each chapter can stand on its own, but it's also part of sort of a series of management lessons. And I think it's a fun book to read. On my website, there's if you're coaching, I was very fortunate to have the time to spend with Coach John Wooden, legendary UCLA basketball coach. I spent 4 hours with him in 2000. Of course, Coach Wooden since has passed, but so there's a video on my website of my interview with Coach Wooden, and it's a great interview. He's just
That's cool.
A gentleman. Really cool. You got to take a look at it because it's just. But when I met with Coach Wooden that day, and I asked him, hey, what would you like for a fee for helping us? And he was going to we were videoing potential message he was going to give our management team. He said to me, Rocky, I'm just here to help out. If I can help you in any way. I said, well, Coach, is there anything we can do? And he said to me that day, would you be willing to donate to the Jimmy Valvano Fund, the V Fund? And I was so touched by his generosity and his thoughtfulness and his gracious ask there that we of course donated more than he had asked us. But this year in the year 2019, for every book sold of Tighten the Lug Nuts, I'm donating $1 to the Jimmy V Foundation in honor of Coach Wooden and in honor of the legendary Coach Jimmy V. So if you buy the book, I think you'll find great value in the book, but you'll also be donating to the V Foundation to find the cure. So I feel like I'm giving back, and we're giving back, but also I think it's a great book that you'll enjoy. So the book you can buy at Barnes & Noble online, Amazon online, and through the website. So, and if you'd like a signed copy, just interact with me on the website, and I'll sign a copy, send it to you, and we can work it out that way as well. So
awesome.
We're on social media, Twitter, 360 Management Services, Facebook, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. So, and of course, as you know, you can always get me on my email, rockyromanella@gmail.com.
Awesome. Cool. I love that. I think it's interesting that some people, I don't know if interesting is the right word. I really like when I see it happen is when people are making they're tying their services directly to charitable contribution. Because I think that the giving back is really the ultimate goal, and being able to do that in immediate fashion. I think Tom's is probably the best example. of a company that started that movement, and it's I love it when people adopt it in their business. So that's cool.
Yep.
So
Well,
we are in the
thank you.
next section here, and this is called Legacy on Rapid Fire. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and just looking for one word to one sentence answers. Now, the first question, I am going to just let you know, if the answer is myself, then I want you to clarify what about yourself. Okay.
Okay.
And you'll know what that means when I ask you the question. But so the first question is, what do you believe is holding you back from being able to reach the next level of your legacy?
Me.
I know. So what about you?
Well, I think it's this. I think part of my problem is that one of my strengths is I believe this humble, being humble, and then part of my problem is I don't do a really good job of self promoting me. So I should do a better job. If you didn't ask me about my website, we could have ended this whole thing. I probably would have never said it. Of course, my wife would have said to me, "Why didn't you tell him about the book? Why didn't you tell him about the website?" But I'm interested in the conversation with you, and I'm interested in the things that we're talking about and how potentially they could help somebody. Probably, that's why I'm self-published. I'm self-published. So people ask me all the time, well, what's your background? Why don't you go to a publisher? I never thought anybody would buy the book. So I wrote a book.
Exactly.
I sat there day one. Somebody said, what was your expectation of sales? Well, I figured out about 75 other Italians in my family that might buy it. So if I hit 100, that'd be pretty cool, right? So I think that I could probably do a better job of promoting myself.
Cool. I love that. So what do you think the hardest thing you've ever accomplished has been to date?
The hardest thing for me was to find work-life balance, and I don't believe I really ever accomplished it to the degree I could, because I look back on, I didn't understand the difference between nice to do and need to do. I put everything in the need to do, and when you look back, there are times that you wish you would have went to your kid's little league game, or things you could have done. And to me, I still believe that the ability to balance your time and to be in the right place at the right time is so important, and you can do so much by understanding that balance.
Nice. And what do you think the greatest success at this point in your life has been?
A wonderful family. Very fortunate to have a great family. 4 beautiful children, 3 are married, 5 grandkids. And I think for me, the understanding that you learn so much from people that are just good people every day. It doesn't always have to be that mentor that's a leader above you or a great book you read. I think some of the best learnings come from. I think my greatest business lesson, comes from my wife Debbie. I think she's taught me so much, and then my dad was a big influence in my life. So I think sometimes we're searching for that great book or that one person that's famous. That I think it comes from the wonderful people you meet every single day. So for me, that success has been understanding that and then learning from those wonderful day-to-day people.
Awesome. I love that. And what are 2 to 3 books that you would recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Well, no, wait. I'm going to try to get better after you ask me the first question. So first is Tighten the Lug Nuts. See, I'm
Okay,
learning
there you
from.
go. There you go.
No, I read a great book. I read is called Lessons from the Mouse from Dennis Snow. Great book from his days working at Disney, and of course, there's many of Coach Wooden's books. Coach Wooden was just a great human being, certainly a legendary coach at UCLA, but a great person. And he started out as a teacher. He was teaching and then moved into coaching. So the Wooden books on the Pyramid of Success are some excellent books. Some excellent books to read.
Awesome. So this is my favorite part of the show. It's not always my guest's favorite part, but it is mine, because we get to pretend that you're dead, and I love that. No, I'm just kidding. No, but really, so we're gonna pretend you're dead, and you have the opportunity to view and listen into a conversation that your great 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 grandchildren are having around the kitchen table about you and your legacy. So this is 6 generations away. Okay, if you're listening to a conversations of your grandchildren or great 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 grandchildren, 6 generations deep, what do you want them to be saying about your legacy?
That Grandpa was a thoughtful person who was generous in his time, and nothing came. The family was the most important thing. So no matter what you did, Grandpa was proud of you. So if you were a garbage man, you were the best garbage man in the world. And it wasn't about. It was you were the best at who you could be, and Grandpa was Grandpa. You could always know Grandpa would be really proud of you.
Awesome. I love that because my grandpa, that's how I felt about him. He always believed in me, even when I didn't think I was ever going to be able to amount to much. He believed in me. He gave me my first, I would say my first identity that I've really chosen that I love and I'm going to keep it. And that is that I could be a great public speaker, or that I have a voice that people will love to listen to. That's what
That's great. Well, that's
only have a
fantastic.
voice that people would love to listen to. And I said, you know what? I like that. So from there, that's stemmed a lot of things in my life. It's part of why I do this podcast. It's part of why I love speaking on stage, and I'm a public speaker. I do a lot of the same type of things that you've described from a business perspective, and just sharing my message. And I love it. And nobody's ever going to change that identity because I've adopted it, and I've multiple times re-ingrained it into my life. So I love it so much.
Isn't that great though that your grandfather had that kind of influence on you? I mean, that's
I'm so
fantastic.
grateful he did.
I know, and I think the thing I always tell people that people will follow you because what you do stems from an honest heart. And if you think about your granddad, I mean, what he said to you stemmed from an honest heart. He may not have articulated it in the most eloquent way, but you understood it, and you know it comes from an honest heart. So because it came from an honest heart, you followed him. You followed what he said because you knew he was sincere and honest. And I think that's what people miss sometimes. Make sure people understand what you're doing by your actions stem from an honest heart. They'll follow you because of that.
Yep, completely agree. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rocky. It's always fun meeting people from the other side of all over the world, really, but it's always good to meet people because Zoom is a miracle system. Technology is a miracle.
Does a great job. It really does. So it's a pleasure meeting you as well. My best to you and your family. And if I can ever help in any way, please don't hesitate to give me a call.
Yeah, sounds good. And thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy.
Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.